and they got charged €20 for the waiter to cut up their birthday cake.
What?
And it was €1 for each slice. And the restaurant were like, it's our new policy. And I just thought, what the hell is going on? Honestly.
Hello and welcome to Sheila's Team Podcast with me, Heather Steele. Today I'm joined by Harriet Russell, Sherri Andrew and Georgina Blaskey. Welcome everyone.
Hello.
We're sort of stupidly excited because you might have noticed we've got new microphones.
New mics.
New mics. They're looking very technical and very cool and very big at the moment, but I'm sure we'll get used to them in no time. But Georgina, welcome back. You've just had, is it 3 weeks out of the office?
3 weeks out of office, yeah. Back in Monday morning into the podcast.
Yeah, I felt a bit bad when I was sending you the invitation on Friday. I was like, Georgina will have just got back and her inbox will be mad. But...
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good. It's great. So, yeah, I've had a great break. It's been really nice to be away. I haven't had that much time off in one go for years and years and years. So, yeah, I feel refreshed, rejuvenated.
Amazing. Tell us where you were.
So I was in the south of France. We drove. So we had 2 days either side of the holiday, which were in the car, just driving around. But we stopped for one night on the way down in Burgundy in a village, and that was beautiful. And then we drove to Saint-Tropez and spent some time there. Then we went to a village in the hills behind Nice, so it's called Vence. And then we drove back via a place called Gorge de Verdun, which is almost like the kind of Grand Canyon of the south of France. So we did some activities there and then stopped at the new Mama Shelter in Dijon on the way back, which opened about 2 weeks ago, which is so cool. And I'd never been to Dijon, and Dijon as a city, amazing for a city break.
Oh,
if you
yeah,
just
I'd
wanted,
like to go.
I mean, you could actually drive from the coast down, from Calais down. It's about 5 or 6 hours, so
doable.
you know it's doable. But actually, obviously, you can fly. It's got an airport. But just the most incredible city, really rich in architecture and culture, and got kind of medieval aspects to it. When you walk around, it's got almost those kind of like Tudor style buildings, and then it's got some incredible palatial stone designs, and obviously was very rich in its time because of everything around there. Wine, mustard.
I was
honestly.
gonna say,
Is the food amazing?
Yeah, the food was really, really good, and just I could have spent days there. Actually, I wish we'd had longer. So then we stayed there, and then drove home, and yeah, just had the weekend kind of.
Oh, that's nice.
Recovering. But yeah, it was great. Really, really good. Good to be away.
Where was your favourite place that you went to? That's a big tour.
Well, we've got so actually my family and my husband's family both have houses in the south of France, so we were staying with them. So it's kind of going a well-trodden path, going back to the same places I've been going to for about 25 years. But yeah, I think I just love the south coast. Did loads of walks along the coastal paths, which are so dramatic, and you get all those incredible pine trees kind of falling down into the sea, and like little hidden beaches. And so I did more walking this year actually than I've ever done, so I think that was really the highlight.
That sounds so nice.
I know. So back to the grey clouds of London this morning,
Yeah,
which
summer
was
is still not playing ball particularly.
Not
Although
summering.
today's nicer. I think we'll
Yeah.
get 3 whole days if we're lucky.
Yes.
this week. The 3 days that we're all working.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
bank
holiday
holiday
weekend.
Yeah.
atrocious.
Yeah.
Oh
Keep
no.
forgetting it's a bank holiday
Yeah.
this coming weekend.
It's the last
Yeah.
one before Christmas.
Yeah.
I know, wild.
Not that it ever really feels that way. I don't feel like this massive drag or anything. I think 'cause the autumn's always just so busy.
Yeah, by the
especially
time
here.
it kicks
That's
into
true.
September, it's only a few months
Yeah.
away, isn't it?
Yeah.
Harriet, do you get up to much of the weekend?
I went to Chichester
Oh,
this
nice.
weekend,
Ooh.
which I haven't been to for a really long time. I have been to the theatre there quite a lot, 'cause
yeah.
it's actually got some really good stuff. Like, quite a few years ago now, but I did see Kim Cattrall there do Antony and Cleopatra.
They often
I know.
Oh, my
trial a
goodness.
lot of stuff there, don't they, before it goes
it
to the West
transfers
End.
into the West End, yeah. So it's a real hidden gem. Like, if you live in that sort of southeast, sort of Sussex area, it's definitely worth keeping an eye on what comes there, because you get some really big names. But this was not to do with that. We went to Pallant House.
Oh, I love it there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
an art
nice.
gallery. So, I mean, Chichester's so cultured.
Yeah.
Who'd know? And we went to see the Gwen John exhibition.
Oh, cool.
Gwen John was an artist. I mean, it's quite extraordinary, really. She was born in something like 1876 and died in 1939. So she was painting in those years where really, like, if you were an art historian, I'm sure you would say it's like the most important period in like the beginning of modern art, basically. And her brother, her younger brother, Augustus John, is much more well known, but that's really just a sign of the times. She was as prolific as he was, but obviously being a man,
a woman,
he got opportunities that she didn't. But one of the really sort of like cheerful or cheering aspects of the exhibition was you realise actually how successful she was and how liberal she was. I mean, she lived in Paris for most of her life, even though she was born in Wales, and she had an affair with Rodin for many years.
As you do.
Yeah, she was an absolute babe by the sound of it. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, I really didn't know anything about her going in. My mum's a fan, so she was the one who dragged me along, and I'm really glad she did, because I thought it was really interesting. It's not a massive exhibition to get your head around. There are other bits and pieces to the house as well, so I think it cost like 11 quid.
Oh, that's good.
Good.
Yeah, and the gallery itself is really lovely. There's a nice restaurant and cafe on site, and a bookshop, and Chichester itself is nice. Like, the town centre's a bit sort of like all town centres, really. It's got lovely architecture, but obviously shop-wise it's a bit sort of the usual suspects, and then lots of vacancies, sadly. But they've got their own cathedral and sort of this beautiful sort of monument in the centre of town, so it's quite nice to walk around.
Yeah, and it's quite close to quite a lot of really good beaches as well, isn't it? Like Climping's not far away.
Yeah, West Wittering.
That's the one. I was like,
West Wittering,
we
used to go through there a lot.
plurals, those.
So yeah, I'd really recommend.
Great. Sherri,
Very
how about
nice.
you? Have you been?
You know what? I've been having lots of nice weekends just at home, just
Yeah,
appreciating
that is nice.
London. I know, I feel like I've just been appreciating being at home and just doing things a bit closer to home, really. I actually had a week off a couple of weeks ago, and again, I didn't go on a holiday. Just stayed at home. And in the beginning, I was a bit like, oh, is this a waste to not like take annual leave and not go away? But I'm so glad that I did.
Also, you've had a very busy year in terms of travel.
This is true.
So
yeah.
it's not like you've sat around all year.
Yeah, this is very true. So it was just really nice to just like go to a cafe in the middle of the day, read your book, go to an exhibition. I went to the Black Venus exhibition at Somerset House.
I really want to go to that.
It's
looks
good.
Great.
It's very small. It's 2 small rooms, but it's one of their accessible exhibitions. So you just pay a donation, anything from like £1. So it's not expensive at all. Very small, but worth a visit if you're in the area. What else did I do? I went to the Air Ancient Bars.
Oh, I'm
yeah.
so
How
desperate
were
to
they?
go to
That was probably the best thing I did all week. It was so lovely. I cannot recommend it enough. I just went on my own. Most people were there in couples, and this was like on a Wednesday at like midday, so it was fairly busy.
Where are they?
So it's in Covent Garden. It's near, I guess it's like a 4-minute walk from Charing Cross towards that way.
Yeah.
So it's super central, and you don't feel like you're in London at all. It has about 7 different thermal baths, all varying temperatures. Some are like lukewarm, others are, there's like a plunge bath that's freezing. There's one that's really hot. So you kind of like, you're in your bathing suit, you're in your swimsuit, and they give you these little like slippers to put on. So you can just like walk between each one. There's like a salt one, so you just float. And they also have a spa above as well. So you can have like massages, facials,
nice.
all the lovely stuff.
And is there kind of guidance on a particular order you should do the baths in, according to temperatures and things?
Well, I asked, they have like, I don't know what the word is, kind of like a guy, like a chaperone who's there, kind of like just very relaxingly cruising between each one. So you can like, ask them questions, they like give you drinks and stuff. You can have like champagne if you want to. So I asked him and he said, no, there's no order. You just maybe don't go from like the plunge bath to the boiling hot one immediately. But again, like you can do that. So no, you can just kind of like go between each one. And yeah, I spent about an hour in there on my own. It was lovely.
So nice.
How did you feel afterwards?
So relaxed. The only thing is having to then get back on the tube to go home brings it.
Yeah.
You don't feel as, but fine. Like I slept so well as well that
That's
evening.
so nice. I went to something really similar in Granada when I went, whenever it was 2 months ago, and it's again, sort of an original Turkish bath, and again, it's really similar. It all with air, sort of like quite dark with just like candles, and you just sort of
Exactly.
go in these different ones. But they were a little bit more like start here and here and here, but then you could just. I think you had 2 hours there, which sounded like a long time, but actually,
It goes quickly.
once you were there, you're quite happy to sort of just sit in some of them for a long time. It's very relaxing.
Very relaxing. And I would also say it's very hot down there. It's like a kind of like a sauna as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they do have a steam room. So I would say maybe go in like the autumn when it's a bit colder to appreciate
Nice and
it.
cozy.
Exactly. But yeah, it was really nice.
You had a fun weekend, Heather.
I did. Well, actually, it was more fun Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Long weekend.
Well, I did. Yeah, the weekend was also good, but no. Thursday and Friday, I went on a press trip to Hampton Manor, which is a sort of country house hotel just outside sort of Birmingham, Solihull, sort of neck of the woods. But it's in Hampton in Arden, which has actually got a train station, and then it's like a 10-minute walk from there, which for someone without a car is just like excellent, because sometimes I feel like those lovely country manor hotel places, you kind of need a car, or you sort of arrive at a train station, then you got to pay God knows how much to get a taxi somewhere. So yeah, good if you're coming from London. But yeah, it was like a group press trip, which was really nice. There were lots of really interesting other women there who was great. And then they've essentially got 2 or 3 different restaurants there, but one of them, which is called Grace and Savour, opened I think like nearly 2 years ago, but it won a Michelin star this year, so they were kind of taking us to show us that. And then they've got another restaurant called Smoke, where the food was just as good, but it's all just on the property. And they've got like kitchen garden, they do wine tastings, they've got an in-house bakery where Min the baker's worked in like Noma's patisserie section, and their sort of bakery offshoot in Copenhagen, and made like the best cinnamon roll I'd ever had. Like it was so good. So we did a sort of sourdough lesson with her as well. But yeah, it was just like really, really relaxing, just sort of going to all the different foodie parts.
And what's
of
the general vibe
hotel.
of the hotel? Like, why would people necessarily go there? Is it like
For the
couples?
restaurants, yeah, I think you could go otherwise, but you definitely go because you want to eat there. There's
Yeah.
lots of different rooms. There are some, the one I stayed at is sort of attached to Grace and Savour, and they're sort of newer rooms, which are very... Someone else described them as being a bit Ibethan, which I guess it's like lots of sparsely decorated, and it's all like natural materials and natural woods with like huge baths and stuff. But then there's also the manor itself, which has got lots of bedrooms, which are more sort of like modernly done, but sort of like William Morris wallpaper and those sorts of vibes, wood panels. And then there's also a cottage as well, which you can hire, and some of the girls slept there. So yeah, they're all sort of uniquely decorated. But yeah, you could definitely go for 2 nights and eat at like the different restaurants there, and yeah, just have a very relaxing time. So yeah,
Amazing.
would recommend. And the restaurant itself, Grace and Savour, where we had the meal on the first night, it's a sort of tasting menu, but the food was like really, really good.
What sort of style is it?
Just like
International.
exactly, but kind of British ingredients with a classic execution. But I'd like heartily recommend it if anyone wants to go on a foodie break, because it was from Euston, it was like an hour and 20 minutes on the train, so
Perfect.
super easy to get to. So I did that Thursday, Friday. Then Saturday I had a couple of friends coming to stay in Brighton. They stayed overnight, so we went to a restaurant that opened in Hove about a year and a bit ago called Palmito, and I hadn't been before, and it's one of those, they do Brighton Best Restaurant Awards every year, and it like shot in straight at number 2 like last year.
Wow.
So, and I'd already heard a few people say it was good, so we went there, which was great. Again, that was definitely like a random mix of like different dishes. Like there was some sort of Spanish style prawns, and then a curry, and then all those sorts of things, but weirdly it all sort of works and everything tastes really lovely. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend that. And then yesterday they left, and then 2 of my friends came for lunch, because it's another friend of ours, Hendu, next Saturday. So we were just doing like the final prep work. So I made a massive lunch, which was really fun. It was Ottolenghi's Test Kitchen book that came out last year, but like the one that's like more good things. They do like, it's basically like buffalo chicken, but as a bake. So you do like a rotisserie chicken and shred it all and make your own sort of hot sauce. And then you put like the ranch dressing bit on top. So like lots of very bad things, like sour cream, cream cheese, blue cheese and mozzarella. And then you bake it in the oven, and it's kind of like a bubbly lasagna, but with like some hot sauce chicken underneath. It was really good.
Delicious.
Wow, sounds amazing.
So yeah, we
How long did that take you?
It took a while, but it was fine. Like I was kind of pottering doing it in the morning while we were watching the football, which we'll chat about later. So I was kind of diving in and out. But no, it was fun. So we did that, did lots of planning. We know what we're doing. And then I went home. So yeah, had a full-on couple of days. But it was all good. Good socialising.
Lots of good food.
Yeah, good. Well, not just mine. One thing I did do last night, once everyone had gone, we'd wanted to watch The Deepest Breath for ages, but then when we went to go put it on a couple of weeks ago, like I think on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night at like 9, and then I realised it was quite long. I think it's like an hour and 50 minutes. I was like, not for a weeknight. So we ended up watching that last night. And
Well, tell me,
Oh my
because I've heard
God.
so many people speak about it, but I
So good.
have not seen it. Have you seen it?
I've not heard of it.
God.
What is
So
it?
it came out a few weeks ago, didn't it, Heather?
Yeah,
On
I feel like I
Netflix.
need to steel myself slightly.
So it came out, a few weeks ago, and it is about the free diving community.
Yeah.
Who are all very international, and essentially they do these crazy dives on one breath.
But the
Yeah.
poster for this, or the sort of thumbnail, as it were, shows this guy going down on like a rope.
It's a competition, isn't
Exactly.
So they're attached
Is that how they
to-
measure it then?
Yeah.
Yes, they're
Okay.
attached to a line, but they can't touch it. So if
Right.
you've watched like My Octopus Teacher, which is one of
Oh,
my
I love
favourite
it.
documentaries ever about the guy who's a free diver, it's slightly different because he will go down for like 20 minutes at a time and hold his breath, which is in itself like, I don't know.
Amazing,
Yeah.
but
How
they're
anyone
not.
does that.
Yeah, it just looks like sort of much more normal, for one of the
Yeah.
best words.
Whereas these competitors will be at extreme levels, like 110 meters below below the surface, but it's even more dangerous because of the pressure.
Right.
And then when they're coming up, that is kind of like
That's the danger
zone.
zone. Yeah.
Because you can have, obviously, I mean, you're holding your breath, so your lungs are at like capacity. You can get brain damage just when you're coming up to the surface.
Your
it's like-
eyes can,
It's
pop.
the same when people scuba dive, isn't it?
Yeah.
They call it the
Yeah.
bends, where you come up too
Exactly.
soon.
Exactly. So you see
Exactly.
a lot of the first footage is them like having a like passing out, and you think, oh my gosh, what's happening here?
It's so traumatic because their eyes roll back into their head when they come up sort of blacked out, and there's a whole team around them to help them. But it's really quite creepy, isn't it?
It is, and it's a very, I'd say, quite a niche extreme sport.
Yeah.
And there's this quite small community that does it. So the story of this documentary is a woman who's fairly young, in her early 20s, and her trainer, and it's him training her for the world championships, which I think is in the Bahamas or somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just, the story is about the two of them, but you get to see like how the actual sport works, and it's fascinating, so dangerous. Oh my goodness, it's like a real, you're sat on your edge, on the
Yeah.
edge of your seat.
Yeah.
kind of
It's like all
documentary.
the free solo stuff as well, isn't it?
exactly.
Where you just think there's climbing,
Yeah.
and then there's this.
Yeah.
Where
I
it's
saw-
like,
yeah.
to me, the danger would just so outweigh, and the risk would outweigh any kind of like pleasure. But for them,
Yeah.
the achievement seems to outweigh
Yeah.
the danger. I don't know.
Oh,
it's
also,
very-
the bit that I really was like, oh, wow, okay, that kind of makes sense, is that when you're first, they've got these ginormous sort of uni flipper things on, and when they're first diving down, they have to kind of do that quite hard to get down. But I think it's at the 30-meter zone, because of the pressure, you basically go into free fall, and you just have to stay really still in it because of
It
the
sucks you
pressure
down.
above
Pulling
you.
you.
Oh my
It just
God.
like shoves you down, and you just keep going and going until you stop. The people who've done that were describing it's basically like flying, like it's feeling you'd never ever be able to experience in any other setting on Earth, or unless you were in space in loads of sort of astronaut gear. That's how it feels, and I think that was the thrill for them, getting to experience that. And the whole point, the way they manage to do it is they just have to go into like a completely meditative state. Like they kind of do that for about 10 minutes before they go in, and that's how they can kind of hold their breath for so long. But I mean, I just don't know how they do it. Every time I go into any sort of water, I have to hold my nose for about 3 seconds, and that's me done. I just can't even imagine.
I can't imagine.
The other thing I found really weird, when they come up, and some of them have been down there 4 or 5 minutes, like Sherri says, these extreme pressures, they don't come up gasping for air. They're just like, if they've done it properly and they haven't blacked out. And I was just like, God, you'd think they'd be like gasping and lurching, but they just make it look super easy. But no, it's really, really interesting. It's fascinating. Like the sports side is incredible. But yeah, like Sherri said, at the centre of it, there is this love story, which is completely incredible. And yeah, honestly, I was saying to Sherri earlier, like when it had finished, I couldn't even look at my boyfriend. I literally just had to like leave the room, and I just like cried in the bathroom for 15 minutes because it's just
It's really
such
emotional.
hard
Well, yeah, loads of
hitter.
people have said it's emotional. I don't know if
It
you can
is.
say anything without like spoiling.
No,
it.
Well, I'm not going
spoilers,
to.
no
No, I'm not
spoilers.
going to. Yeah. No, but it's just really, really good. I haven't seen a documentary like that. Yeah, like since
Yeah.
my octopus teacher, which again I was crying about that for about 4 weeks.
Anything to do with the sea, I just find it fascinating.
I do. I think because
So
it's just
interesting.
it's too
I'm very
scary.
afraid of this.
Scary.
Yeah.
Some of these places they dive. There's one like the Abyss, and it's basically a hole in the ocean, and it's just pitch black. There's this other place that's basically nicknamed like the Divers Cemetery, which is this it's 30 meters down, and then there's an archway that you go through. But obviously, if you panic or something goes wrong, you've got 30 meters of rock above you, so you're fucked.
Yeah.
No, I'm very afraid of the ocean.
Freaked out.
I think that's probably just because we just don't know so much about
Yeah.
it
It's
still.
such an unknown.
Yeah. But I was thinking, this doesn't happen in the film, but what if you were doing that and then you saw a shark and you were like, oh, you'd be screwed because you'd like inhale all that water.
I did think there are no creatures down there.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that's
Do they net the
deliberate.
area off or
Yeah, I
something,
think
maybe?
Do you
do.
think?
I think
Because I
we
didn't
do,
see
yeah.
any of that because I was
You don't even see any fish at all.
Yeah, that's-
I mean,
it's
even
so
if they net
low
the
down.
area, how do you even clear it in the first place? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
But then the
anyway,
nets
yeah.
would have to go so
Yeah,
far
so
down.
far down.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, I would heartily recommend it. It's really good.
So good.
Has anyone else watched or read anything recently?
I last night watched the first 3 episodes of Hijack, which is with Idris Elba. I think it's Apple.
Yeah,
TV.
I think it is, yeah.
And I didn't know what to expect, but it keeps popping up on my home screen. And obviously, Idris Elba is so cool. So I was like, oh, I'm going to watch that. And it is absolutely brilliant. It's so clever. It's so subtle. It's quite slow moving. But obviously, as the title would suggest, they're on a plane. There's a hijack. No spoilers there. But it's kind of how, I mean, there's 7 episodes.
Yeah.
And the flight is Dubai to London, which is 6.5 hours. So you're kind of in real time almost as they're going through a series of events that happens on the plane and involves different passengers, the hijackers themselves, the pilot, the co-pilot, and then also, interestingly, loads of people on the ground. So there's air traffic control in Dubai, in London. There are police. People are being kind of tipped off with things. So no one really knows the plane's been hijacked, but at the same time, they're somehow managing to signal, because the Wi-Fi's been turned off on the plane. So they're trying to signal what might be going on. And it's just a really intricate, detailed look at how different people are reacting. The sort of people who want to kind of go in and just like wrestle them to the ground and, you know, claim the plane back. And then other people who are saying, no, we've got to let this play out if we've got a chance of living. So it's just really, really good. And he's brilliant in it. Idris Elba's brilliant.
And
in
is it a series or a one-off?
It's a series. So it's 7 episodes.
7
Yeah.
episodes. And is
So,
Idris
yeah.
Elba just a passenger? Or is there anything special about him?
He is a passenger, but his day job is he is a negotiator.
Oh, that's handy.
But not in kidnapping or things like that, actually in business. So when he sort of, you're not really clear exactly what he does, but I think the suggestion is when deals are going through and you get to the point where everyone, it's kind of the last hour and everyone in the room is sort of beginning to unravel and things are maybe like, is this going to happen or not? He then comes in and is the chief negotiator and sorts it all out, obviously. But it's interesting because it comes at it from all quite a psychological perspective, because he's talking about how you really need to be in the shoes of the people who have a high stake in this situation, whatever it may be. And obviously in this situation, it's the hijackers. And so he starts very early on, starts kind of empathizing with them and getting there. And it's weird because all the other passengers are obviously like, who is he and why would you ever be sympathetic to what they're doing? Because there are 200 odd people terrified on this flight. And you don't know what their motivation is, or I still don't know anyway at this point. But there's a lot. What I like about it is not just on the plane. There's all this other stuff happening in kind of global locations. And it's really interesting, just kind of what the characters are so well written, working out their motivations and their instincts. So there are some people who are like quite dismissive, oh, well, air traffic control. But then there's obviously that one character who's like, this is highly unusual. Do you know that, this would indicate that perhaps there's a problem on the plane? Anyway, it's just brilliant.
Yeah, I do need to watch it.
I hope it's going to have a really satisfying.
Oh, I was going to say I'm not
My
saying anything because I've heard a few things here and there, which means I haven't watched it. But I'd be interested to see.
Disappointing ending.
I don't know. I don't want to upset your viewing experience.
All I can say is the first 3 episodes are very good, and where it goes from there, we'll see.
But sometimes I know if endings are annoying, that is annoying. But I think if you've still captured that magic at the beginning and you're really excited and you can't wait to watch the next few episodes, I still think that's a good thing.
Yeah,
so
well, next time I'm on, I'll let you know whether it's worth continuing with or not.
Sherri, anything from you?
Gosh, yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of time to catch up on my reading, watching, listening. So 2 things I really enjoyed on Netflix. One is Heartstopper. Has anyone?
Oh no, but
I've never watched it, but it's almost like I feel like I've absorbed it through osmosis or something.
It's so good. So the series 2 just came out at the beginning of August, which is why I was like, okay, let me see what all the hype is all about. And everyone is so good. I cannot tell you how heartwarming it is. Someone described it as a hug in a TV show, and that's exactly what it is.
I'm so excited to watch it.
The cast is so good. Olivia Colman's in it. She plays his mum. So it's about 2 boys. They're at school. I think they're supposed to be in like year 11, so like 15, 16. One of them has come out already as gay, and he's had a really horrible time at school. He's been like relentlessly bullied, and it's kind of like a shell of himself. He's just not in a very good place. And then he fancies this other guy who is not out. He actually thinks that he's straight, and it's their story of them coming together. That's not a spoiler to say that they get together. That's like in the first kind of couple of episodes. But it's also like a celebration of friendship and what it means to like have friends at school and like have a sense of belonging. And it's such a celebration of like queer love and just like being at school and actually having like nice friends.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different parallels. Like there are lots of queer people. There's a lesbian couple. One girl is trans. So it kind of tackles being like queer in today's society from like lots of different angles, which is done really nicely. And it's not even like, it's not necessarily all the bad things. It does that as well, but it's all like the positive things and the sense of like community, and it's just so heartwarming. And also you're just rooting for these 2 boys because they're so sweet. And I don't think you ever see anything where like characters are like so like genuinely lovely. Honestly, it's so good. Even now I'm like, I just loved it. Honestly, I binged it in like 2 days, and I'm sad I don't have more.
How long are they?
They're quite short. I think they're about 30 minutes.
Oh, great, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, but all the characters are... Not all of them are lovely, but they all have redeeming qualities.
Anything else?
Oh, yes, the other thing, this is not as nice, is Painkiller. Has anyone started this?
Not yet, but I knew that you'd be into it or be watching it because I remember you reading Empire of Pain last year, which some of it is based on.
Exactly.
Is this the one with Matthew
Broderick?
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
I saw that popped up yesterday on my home screen as well.
Yeah, you're the second person to recommend it, actually.
Really intrigued
well.
to know what it was about.
I'm recommending it, and it is good. However, I think Dope Sick on Apple TV is actually better, and they're very similar. They both have the same stories to do with the opioid crisis in America, which I'm not going to say I have a fascination in because it's like a very sad topic, but I don't know what. I guess it is a fascination, but it's.
I think it's because we don't have it here, and we very easily could do. I think we think of the UK and America as being very similar, but then you see that they've got this wild opioid crisis.
Well, because our pharmaceutical industry is regulated so much better, really. That's the reason.
Exactly. So both of the series follow one person who has directly been affected by OxyContin, which is the opioid drug that has directly led to, I think it's 50 million deaths in the US right now over the last, I think since the 90s. So it's really recent. It's just so sad, and it's a true story. So Matthew, is it Broderick? Broderick, yeah. So he plays Richard Sackler, who is the head of this huge pharmaceutical company, and they have really like old roots within the industry. Like their family also created Valium and lots of other like branded drugs, and this drug has just led to so many deaths. And the reason that it's so bad is because they knew that it was so addictive, and they marketed it so heavily and so relentlessly at communities in America that are really deprived, and they are basically salespeople. It's kind of different to here in the UK, where you can go to your doctor and say, I have like X of this drug, this is why it's good, sell it to all your kind of like customers, which is just so immoral. So the series follows kind of him and the people who are directly affected, and also a US attorney who is trying to take down the family slowly. But it's just, it's a really hard watch. But I actually prefer Dopesick because I feel like it's more dramatic. But if you're interested in this, Empire of Pain that Heather mentioned is one of the best books I've ever read, and it's by a New York Times journalist who has done the most amazing investigative journalism on the whole topic. Yeah, it's just a thorough investigation of the family going back to the 40s when they emigrated to the US to the present day, and how they've made this huge pharmaceutical company, and basically just how evil they are and how they've marketed it and made billions and a sick amount of money you would not even it's billions to the point where my mind can't even comprehend how much money they've made
because they've stuck their name above so many.
Oh yeah, and lots of them.
Wing at the
V&A's gone now.
Yeah. All the things that they had sponsored or whatever the term would be.
Well, they were philanthropists, weren't they, with their dodgy money?
Dirty money.
Yeah.
I would say, watch the Netflix documentary if you don't know much about it. If you want a deep dive, read the book by Patrick Radden-Keefe, which is, excellent.
Well, I do need to watch Dopesick, so you just reminded me that
that's good.
I'm going to watch it next. Just very quickly, because I didn't get to speak about it a few weeks ago because we were talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer, but that same week I had also binge-watched Series 2 of The Bear, which I just thought was fucking great.
So good.
I absolutely loved it. I don't think it was better than the first series, but I think because we, grew to know and love the characters, and then, Series 2 just drops you straight back in where you sort of left off, and I just really enjoyed watching. They're still trying to get the restaurant off the ground, but just getting from A to B was extremely exciting. And there is a particular episode, which is episode 7, which is set in the past at the family home one Christmas Eve, and it's just one of the best bits of TV I've seen in a very long time. It's I was actually on the edge of my seat for the whole hour, just oh my god, something's gonna happen.
It's so good.
You should. It's so good.
So many great recommendations. I know all these documentaries.
It's that time of year where things on TV are starting to.
Yeah, because July.
Yeah.
Much going on there.
I think it just rained the whole time, so I've just watched some telly.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, did anyone watch the Women's World Cup final yesterday?
Yes.
No. I was going to say, I think they played well. They didn't necessarily, but as in, I think
I'm
still very proud of them, and I still think it was an amazing achievement.
It is an amazing achievement.
Yeah, I feel very sorry.
And I'm glad
for
people
them.
like Ian Wright are standing up and saying it's not right that they're not being paid the same bonuses for getting to the final and stuff. Because it is a huge achievement. And,
of course it is, yeah.
The fact that we wouldn't reward them in the same way as the men is absolutely despicable. So,
and there was lots of debate, wasn't there? Because Prince William, who's head of the FA, didn't go over, and the Prime Minister didn't go over, whereas I'm 99% certain that if the men's team had got into the final, they would have been there. I can see the argument for them being like, well, if we had have gone, we'd have been told that we weren't being very green for flying all the way there. But I do think...
said that about Queen Letizia of Spain.
Yeah, I think they should have gone.
True.
They've got daughters as well.
Exactly. I think if they'd won yesterday, it would have erupted into more of a row. But the fact that they've lost, I suspect it will blow over.
Yeah.
But... yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm sure if it was the men, he'd have been there.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But no, I enjoyed watching the sort of run-up and things like that. I thought they were all amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Mary Earps is just insanely good goalkeeper.
Well, and she's going to go down in meme history,
yes. On the subject, sort of football, I was on the train with a big group of women on the way to this press trip on Thursday when the Coleen Rooney Vogue cover story came out. So we were all quite excited about it. Did anyone read it?
I did. I read it immediately.
I thought you would.
Mainly because Tash in our office, who is one of our designers, was like, oh my God, Colleen's on the cover of Vogue. And I was like, this cannot be true. She's not actually on the cover for September, but when they do an interview with someone, they will often do a photo shoot of them like it's the cover.
Yeah.
So I think she'll be one of the feature stories. Mm-hmm. I did read the interview. It was extremely interesting. Yeah. But I'm very invested in this story anyway.
I was going to say, you have followed it since day one.
Since day one,
with avid attention. Yes. So did she say anything new that you were like, oh, I didn't know that before the trial or anything?
She did. She actually said, the interview asked her, would you ever forgive Rebecca? And she says, I'm a very forgiving person, but basically no. Not in those words.
She didn't say it, but the interviewer was like, we'll take that as a no then.
Exactly.
But she was very clear about, she basically sat down and said to the interviewer, ask me anything. And I think she was very upfront and honest about everything. And I also, as a side note, loved that all the quotes were written in that Liverpudlian dialect as well. Like they hadn't tried to like write it as, oh, that's how you would write it. So yeah, she was basically, one of the early questions was, you know, how good a friend were you with Rebecca Vardy before this all kicked off? And they weren't friends at all.
I don't think I ever assumed they were, though.
But some people, I think, thought that they must have been friends to some degree, because why else would Rebecca Vardy be on her close friends' Instagram?
Right.
So I think they were sort of probing about that. And she was just
which
like...
is a fair point.
Yeah. Well, she was saying that it was just because they're basically women in the same situation, you know, wags with kids and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, she felt that she was a safe person to have in there because she'd be going through very similar things that she would herself.
I suppose there's a difference, isn't there, between describing yourself as we're not friends, but you don't have to hate her at the same time.
She actually used the word associate, which
she?
I thought was really interesting, because most people would say an acquaintance or a friend or a colleague. But true. Because they were operating in a similar sphere at a certain moment in time, there was an association. I just thought it was a really interesting...
Quite business-like.
It feels like a word.
This is exactly, totally, this is business. This
It feels like a word her lawyers fed her to use, perhaps.
Possibly.
No, I thought it sounded like it could be quite authentic, actually.
Yeah. But she was saying, Coleen was saying that, so she was invited to the Vardy's wedding and various christenings as well, and they didn't go because they were like, well, we wouldn't invite them to ours. So
they didn't go, okay.
No, but it sounds like, I think she was saying she found it a bit strange that they had been invited, because the way that she described their relationship was that she was like, well, we've never been out for a drink together. And for her, she's like, that would be, if you were friends or, you know, knew someone, you might go out for a drink, and they'd never done that before. No. But I think it's definitely worth reading. I enjoyed some of the takeaways from it.
Well, and it was interesting when they talked about, she did touch on Wayne's extracurricular.
Yeah. She did.
Yeah.
Which is why I think she's essentially done this, because did anyone watch his documentary on, I think it was Amazon?
I saw clips of it,
Yeah, I mean, he just came across so badly.
Really?
Yeah,
she came across as long-suffering,
long-suffering, indeed. But now I think she wants to reclaim back some of the... I don't know, some of her, what's the word, like autonomy, I guess?
Yeah.
Just as like a person, because the disrespect is on another level.
Oh, no, that's a shame.
Well, it's
from
bad.
him
From
to
him.
her.
Oh, yeah, but from like, this isn't news.
No,
Like,
but I would hope that they might
there's all
have
the pictures
moved
of him
on.
going in and out of brothels. And
exactly. And
But I think what you're saying is, like, at the time that those things came out, she was seen as like weak for not leaving him, essentially, even though a lot of people would say at the time, you know, they had young kids and she obviously had a lifestyle that she was used to by now, and it's like, oh, but does that make it okay? Is that even worse? Like, is she making a deal with the devil and all of this sort of thing? So I suspect that's the sort of narrative that she wants to say, like, people can say what they want, but these were my reasons.
Exactly, because she does address that in the interview, like why she stayed and all of those things. But she's got a Disney, there's a Disney 3-parter coming out, and she does say in the interview, she's like, I've always, because they've got 4 kids, haven't they? And I think the youngest is 5 and has just finished reception. So, and she says in the interview, she's always said that she hasn't missed a football game any of the boys have played or anything. She's always been like a hands-on mum, but the moment that the youngest goes to school, she kind of wants to get her career kick-started again.
It's her story, but she's never been allowed to tell it. So like you say, there's been the documentary, there's been the drama, there's been this and that. She's not involved in any of those things. And they do ask her, do you regret sending that tweet? If you were going to do it, if you were going to go and do it again, would you have done it that way and everything? And she doesn't say no. Yeah. But I definitely felt at the end that maybe she wouldn't have wanted it to go. If she knew it was going to end up going into the papers, the courts, everything. Yeah. I got the feeling she definitely wouldn't have done it.
But I also like that, Harriet, in the piece, she said she didn't show anyone the message, that post. She didn't tell anyone she was going to do it. It didn't go through lawyers or anything.
That's interesting.
Because she was like, she knew if it was just something she really wanted to do, because she'd just had enough of all these leaks and was convinced that she knew where they were coming from. But she was like, I knew that if I told somebody I was going to do it, they'd talk me out of it. So she just did it on her own. Like,
She did that actually quite good TV show where they were looking for models.
oh, which was that one?
What Coleen did?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember
God, I
that.
wish I remember what it was called. It was probably on in like 2006 or something like that, and it was her, and she was trying to convince like top models agencies like Models One and stuff to take normal girls like onto their books. Bear in mind that this was the era of like size 0.
I was going to say,
like,
that seems normal now, but it
Yeah.
certainly wasn't there.
And so she would do these, like every episode was like an open casting essentially, and then they would
Interesting.
whittle it down to sort of 4 or 5 girls. And their big thing was like they wouldn't take, models that were too thin or models that had like plastic surgery or anything like that. It was like very normal girls, and trying to sort of make the best of them so that the model agencies would sign them. And it was really interesting because it was not a success story. Like every episode, it wasn't like an X Factor, like rags to riches, every single time. Like some of the model agencies on the end of the episode would be like, no, we're not taking any of them.
Interesting.
So
I don't remember this, but I need to watch this.
need
Oh
to
yeah, I was
watch
going to
it.
say it sounds good. And actually, you saying that is interesting because one of the lies she fed to Rebecca Vardy's account was that she wanted to make a comeback to TV, and that was one of the stories that got into the Sun. And I was like, come back to TV? What was she doing? But
Yeah.
there we
Must
go.
be that.
Actually, I think, having just said like she's talentless and I'm not interested, actually she was a decent presenter. So maybe there's like room for her to be an Olivia Attwood type person, whereas like Olivia Attwood's not like a singer or a dancer. She's just come off a reality show as well, but she's so relatable and she's such a warm presenter and she's willing to look at these kind of like controversial topics that maybe Coleen could do that.
I think so.
I would love that for her.
Yeah. I enjoyed your feature you sent me earlier.
Yeah, I found, this was actually in the news last week. So a group of tourists were having dinner in Italy and they got charged €20 for the waiter to cut up their birthday cake.
What?
And it was €1 for each slice. So it's 20 people, 20 slices, €20. And they saw it at the end of the bill and they were like to the waiter, what on earth is this? And the restaurant were like, it's our new policy. And I just thought, what the hell is going on? Honestly.
So hang on, back up a bit. So did they take their own birthday cake to the restaurant?
Yes.
This was not a cake supplied by the restaurant.
No.
So it's almost like a corkage fee.
But I've
Yeah,
heard
exactly.
of cakeage fees before because
Okay.
some places do say like if you're bringing your own
Yeah.
cake, we have to charge you £10 or something like that because I guess
But what
their
for?
argument. Well, I guess the argument is with my restaurant head on. Often people bring a cake in and then
they
don't
don't
have
order
pudding.
dessert. Yeah.
I
So
see.
then you might be like,
Same with the wine. You bring your own wine. You're not
So you
paying
pay
the wine fee, so you pay
corkage.
corkage.
I do like-
And they've got to wash up. How many people are at this table? 10 plates,
20,
20
yeah.
plates, 20 forks.
Yeah.
oh, they could just hand over napkins and eat
size.
it with your hands.
Yeah.
But
Well, but they probably
Depends where you are.
wouldn't. Yeah.
I kind of get that, but I'm like, if you're booking a restaurant for 20 people, the chances are you're probably spending quite
Yeah,
a lot of money
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So
They should just do it as a goodwill gesture, really.
yeah,
Or
really. Also,
it's got to be up front. You've got to say beforehand. No one wants to be slapped with an
Yeah.
extra wodge at
Yeah.
the end. Like you need to kind of be up front and be like, hang on a
I do actually think though I would be, because I would worry that a restaurant would get funny about us taking our own stuff
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
So I would probably ring the restaurant in advance and say, we're going to bring a birthday cake, is that
Yeah.
okay? And then it's their job to say that's absolutely fine, but we charge this fee on top.
yeah.
But also I think the difference with something like that is like the margin that people make on desserts is not the margin you're making on alcohol. So I can understand
Yeah,
if,
true.
like with corkage, they're having to make up that difference.
Often people share puddings and stuff as well,
Yeah.
don't they? Like,
Well, and as
so-
Sherri said, for like 20 people who are
Yeah.
having starters and mains, like...
yeah.
and booze and
Yeah.
Yeah,
whatnot.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think it depends what kind of restaurant you're at.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't bring
Yeah.
a birthday cake to something really fancy because I feel like, oh, no.
Yeah, like don't want your nice puddings.
Yeah.
Here's my homemade sponge.
Exactly. But for like a casual meal, like when you're on holiday with your friends and
Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
I just think it's ridiculous. I honestly could. I had to read it twice and was like, "Is this actually a thing now?"
Yeah.
But it
I think
reminded
it's
me-
funnier that it's by the slice. I'd be like, I'll just cut 4 slices there
Yeah.
and charge us £4, and then
share.
we'll just
So
sort of,
true. But
yeah.
it's just like, how long does it take to cut up a slice?
Yeah.
Like 3 seconds.
Maybe just
Yeah.
don't get them to cut it. Just put it in the middle
Exactly,
of the table
and
and everyone
everyone
can just
helps
dig in.
Yeah.
themselves. That's what we do in the office if a cake ever arrives.
It's true. We make an absolute mess of it every time.
Very true.
Cool, should we answer some reader questions? So, there's one question here about, has anyone got any good dating tips? Harriet?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm the only single one here. Well, I mean, that's huge, isn't it? It's a huge topic. But what I had seen recently, so I spend obviously a lot of time out of London at the weekends, but I live in London. So on Sunday, I'm very often driving back and I go up Roehampton Hill because I live in Wandsworth. And there was a huge billboard, there is a huge billboard there all the time. And normally it's got some sort of Love Island contestant on it, flogging some Boohoo collection. But this time it was like the world's biggest social dating experiment, Pair.com or something. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Anyway, then a friend texted me and she was like, do you know about Pair? And I was like, that's so weird. I've just seen this billboard. So I did some sleuthing online. And basically it's this new scheme where a group of people have got together and decided that dating apps are so awful and have really just become about one thing, that there has to be an alternative for finding people, like-minded people who are looking for actual relationships as opposed to just hookups. Yeah. Which I'm not judging anyone, but that is what the apps have become.
Yeah, exactly. If that's not what you're after, there does need to be something else.
Days.
Yeah.
And also, you know, there's an argument to say the apps are a bit dangerous. I don't know, meeting someone in a bar I don't think is any less dangerous, to be honest. But anyway, the scheme is that you go on, and it is literally an experiment. It's being sort of backed by scientists who are like analysing the data of this. But essentially you go on, and I think you pay $19.99 and you choose your sexual preferences when you go in. So you can tell them not a huge amount, like they don't want a huge amount of detail, but they just basically want to know whether you're like bisexual, heterosexual, things like that, man, woman, etc., or identify another way. And they will send you, depending on those preferences that you fill out, a ring of a certain colour. And the idea is you wear this ring.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And then when you're out and about, obviously people with the same colour ring as you have the same matched interests. So I think for like heterosexual looking for a relationship, which is like obviously fairly bog standard, but it's probably what I put in, I think it's like pale green. And it obviously doesn't matter on your gender, but they'll send everyone who fills that out a green ring, so that then when you're out and about in public, like if I'm at a coffee shop and the server is also wearing a green ring, it also says like on the website, it means that you're open to advances.
Right, okay.
Because obviously we live in a time where lots of men and lots of women are obviously very frightened of like
of course.
making an advance in case it's taken the wrong way or like just rejection as well. So the ring doesn't only tell people like I'm heterosexual, it also says I'm
Chat
open
to me,
like
or,
being chatted up basically.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And like I say, they're gathering all the data. The first round sold out and they've just launched the second round of rings. So the idea is that, you know, they'll get all this data, and then I suppose, because I haven't actually filled it out yet, I suppose the idea is like you're supposed to inform them if you get into a relationship so that they can judge success rates.
Right.
But essentially what they're saying is like this is an alternative to dating apps. So it's a lot more like IRL. Because the digital part lasts like 30 seconds.
So then there is no other matching done online or on an app?
Not on their
at
part
all.
at
It's
all.
just the ring.
Yeah.
So how do you know if you live in an area where there's been a take-up of...
I suppose you wouldn't know that there's been
know.
a take-up. You just have to, once you're wearing yours, be
looking around. Yeah.
Would you be constantly like...
But it's in the same way that people often size people up with wedding rings.
Of course,
don't
yeah,
they?
like,
"Does
they're
he have
not wearing a
Does
ring."
she have a wedding? You know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like,
That's
it's
very
the
true.
same
Yeah.
psychology.
Yeah.
It's just that the messaging is like super clear. Like there's no, you don't cut out all the bullshit basically.
Yeah.
And just get straight to it.
I like this.
I
I was
Cool.
really
It's very
intrigued.
clever.
I was like, I might give it a go and be
You
like,
should,
yeah,
only
part of
because
it.
I do think people our age probably would prefer to like meet people in real life, but like you say, everyone's either like already married, or you know, you've met people in your social circle before and they're not your type, or you know, any of those things. So I'm sure like most people our age would prefer to.
It also requires you, I think, past a certain age, if you want to do the in real life thing, to be like uber social, like go to every party, every bar.
Yeah.
And like that's just not some people's way of life. Either maybe they work too much, or they're
it's,
just
not
more of an
sustainable.
introvert. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
Or they don't live in a busy, busty...
exactly. They live more remote. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting way of like connecting those people
Definitely.
in reality.
To answer our reader question, try Pair. Is it Pair, PEAR?
Yes. Yeah. Go online, look at that, become part of the experiment.
Yeah.
I might do it too.
I was
And
gonna
then
say
we
the
can
more the
start
merrier. I
communicating.
think is the way it's going to work.
Yeah.
Need people with all those
intrigued.
rings.
So clever. I love that.
I'm intrigued to see what the rings look like. I'm like, green
Yeah.
rings. That sounds nice.
Yeah. Yeah, they're sort of like, from what
Yeah.
I've seen online, they're like a minty
Yeah.
coloured just band, basically.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, very chic. And then finally, someone's saying that they're starting a new job next week. Any advice?
Don't be afraid of making mistakes.
Ask
I think
lots of
that's a big
questions.
one. Don't try and be perfect. You're not going to know it all in the first week.
Yeah.
Give yourself like a 6-week break-in phase,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
I think after about 6 weeks, you need to be probably feeling like you're coming to meetings and, you
Yeah.
know, sort of on it.
Yeah.
And I think no one expects that at the beginning, so
No.
don't be too hard on
Yeah.
yourself.
And also, I think by the 6-week mark, your probation is probably only another 6 weeks away, and you'll probably have a inkling of which way it's going. So, yeah, I think if you get to the 6-week mark and you think no one's really said anything about like problems, then you're probably through.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
Sherri, any tips?
But I just think be really nice to everyone and
Yeah.
like make an
Yeah.
effort to speak. Like just have like a chat with anyone in the kitchen
Yeah.
or like
That's really good advice,
introduce
actually.
yourself as well, so people know who you are. Because often people sometimes don't get introduced to the whole office, or if you're especially if you're in a big business.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be like, oh hi, I'm Sherri. Like I work in this department. Nice to meet you. And I think people like that, and that
Yeah,
goes
and
a long
also
way.
I've had it
Yeah.
in this office where new people will email me for something, and I do think it's better if you're new, the first time you need something from someone else, just go over and say like, oh hi, I'm such and such, I've just joined this.
Yeah.
I've been told you're the person that's going to ask,
Yeah.
you know, help me with that, and I just think that helps as well.
Yeah.
Also, you'll get to remember everyone's names and faces a bit easier that way, and also,
Yes, true.
the longer you leave stuff like that, the weirder it becomes.
Yeah.
So you might
It's
as well
so
just
true.
rip the plaster off and say hi to everyone.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely.
Good
Yeah.
advice. Brilliant. Well, thanks all for your tips and ideas. I've definitely got some even more TV recommendations. Thank you. And thanks so much for watching and listening. If you have any feedback or questions for us, please do email us at podcast@SheerLux. And we'll see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.